believe America needs CNN to be strong. I believe the free world needs CNN to be strong, and it will continue to be, because all of us are going to help make that happen. The free world needs a reliable source. So, for reliable sources, for the last time, I'm Brian Stelter. Thanks for being with us.
Brian Stelter humiliates himself one last time on CNN. That's right, later tater. The Mr. Potato Head of the lamestream media is officially history. He's gone. We're going to have a little gloat fest here at Stelter's expense. We're going to relive some of the more cringeworthy highlights of his tenure at CNN. And make sure to stick with me at the very end of this video when we'll find out exactly why Stelter ultimately guaranteed his own demise. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. And gang, if you've got $50,000 or more in an IRA, 401k, or savings account, you need to protect those assets from bumbling Biden's utter insanity with the timeless value of gold and silver. Click on that link below and talk to our good friends over at Goldco. They're patriots just like us, and they want you to succeed so much that they're offering you up to $10,000 in free silver if you open up an account with them. But that is a limited time offer, so don't wait. Click on that link below or visit my special website, turleytalkslikesgold.com. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. The ever insufferable left-wing activist Brian Stelter is officially gone from CNN. He did his final show on Sunday, a show that once again barely anyone watched, and for good reason. Brian Stelter was the poster boy for the blatant partisanization of the news media. The news media today is widely recognized as having degenerated into what scholars call advocacy journalism, where journalistic endeavors are deliberately reconfigured around political aims and goals. In other words, under the auspices of advocacy journalism, the endeavor of just simply reporting the news is replaced with a deliberate attempt at recalibrating the news to push a very particular partisan viewpoint. And no one that I can think of did that more blatantly and brazenly than old Mr. Potato Head himself. Here's a bit of a montage of Stelter pushing his own far-left politics as news.
Trump might have committed treason. What does Putin have on Trump? The U.S. president possibly working for the Russians. Is President Trump a racist? Is the Trump presidency a criminal presidency? Trump and some of his allies are promoting a hate movement against the American press. I mean, for all we know, these emails are made up, or maybe some are real and others are fakes. We don't know. But we do know that this is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
That's right. You just saw, among the other embarrassments, Stelter pushing the notion that the Hunter Biden laptop bombshell was nothing more than Russian disinformation peddled by the right-wing media. That, of course, is why so many rightly recognize that people like Brian Stelter are literally killing the legacy media. They are literally destroying any semblance of faith and trust that the lamestream media has salvaged. And that's because even though they have overtly embraced this notion of advocacy journalism, they still try to make the claim that they're objective, disinterested mediators of reliable information, completely untainted by any hint of bias. And Stelter was one of the worst offenders when it came to this blatant contradiction. For heaven's sakes, his show was entitled Reliable Sources, not biased sources, not political or partisan sources, reliable sources. And of course, he was called out on that by none other than a fellow anti-Trump liberal journalist who recognized that Stelter was seemingly single-handedly bringing down the media. Check this one out.
I think the media has done a terrible job on this. I think you yourself, while you're a nice guy, you're full of sanctimony. You become part of one of the parts of the problem of the media. You come on here and you have a monopoly on truth. You know exactly how things are supposed to be done. You are one of the reasons people can't stand the media. I'm sorry.
You're cracking me up.
It's your fault.
So What should I do differently, Michael?
Don't talk so much. Listen more. People have genuine problems with the media. The media doesn't get the story right. The media exists in its own bubble.
That's true. I agree.
You got to stop. I mean, that last segment that I just had to listen to of all of the people saying the same old stuff. Also, you're incredibly repetitive. It's week after week. I mean, you're the flip side of Donald Trump. Fake news, and you say virtuous news. There's
we just figure out what is real.
I mean,
I'm listening.
Well, figuring out what is real is not so easy, and
right.
Most people don't want to turn to Brian Stelter to tell us what's real. I'm sorry.
I mean, that was beyond brilliant. It's beyond brilliant. It's a fellow left-wing activist telling Brian Stelter, it's probably better that you just shut up. Stop talking. Listen more. Nobody is looking to you, Brian Stelter, to tell them what's real. Perhaps because of segments like this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know if it's a good thing that star power and TV savvy is required for the job, but I think it is. And by the way, I think President Obama also had a lot of TV star power, and that helped him pre-Trump. But Trump is more evidence of this. And looking ahead to 2020, one reason why I'm taking you seriously as a contender is because of your presence on cable news.
I mean, you heard it yourself. Brian Stelter explicitly stated that he thought the most unserious human on the planet was a serious presidential contender. A creepy porn lawyer was, in the words of Brian Stelter, a serious presidential contender. You can't make this stuff up. This is not a Saturday Night Live skit. This is CNN. This is a program called, in almost Orwellian fashion, Reliable Sources. But I gotta say, one of my all-time favorite moments was when a caller phoned in when Stelter was on a C-SPAN show to read him the Riot Act on his and CNN's daily barrage of lies and deceit.
And you guys always talk about how many times Trump has lied. I've calculated that I think with your chyrons, I don't know if there's any journalists left at CNN, but I know that, if I were to estimate about 300 different, distortions or misinformation that we get out of CNN, and you have to watch them in the airport, which is harsh. But if you added all that up to 46 months, it comes out to be 300,000 plus distortions of truth. So my thing is that you guys, this is how low you'll go, is that you went out and you made lies and you defamed a child. And then you had to settle out of court to pay this child for distorting information about this young individual. So I would say, if anything that's happening at CNN and anybody who buys your book, it's really just one of those things that is dividing our nation. And I don't believe in dividing our nation. It hurts our great nation. And so CNN is really the enemy of the truth. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Brian Stelter.
I'm grateful for the call. And I know that you're not the only person that feels this way. There has been a process of radicalization that's happened in this country with media bashing that is absolutely unprecedented. 20, 30 years ago, conservatives talked about media bias, and there were some really valid points to that critique. It is absolutely true that lots of journalists are based in New York and Washington. They're based in big cities. They have liberal leanings. And mainstream newsrooms are built to make sure that bias doesn't seep into the news coverage. And yet sometimes it does. I absolutely acknowledge that. I think it's different to talk about things as if they're enemies. No American is an enemy of another American. No news outlet is an enemy of America.
Can you believe that? Newsrooms are structured to keep what he admits is the left-wing bias of so-called journalists and news reporters, to keep it out of their reporting, which is itself a radical distortion of the truth. When all is said and done, what Stelter and other leftist liberals at CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times have done is they have reconciled for themselves this contradiction between advocacy journalism and objective, disinterested journalism by redefining objective reality as itself left-wing liberalism. And that is precisely how Stelter ended his fledgling show.
Here's what I do know. I know it's not partisan to stand up for decency and democracy and dialogue. It's not partisan to stand up to demagogues. It's required. It's patriotic. We must make sure we don't give platforms to those who are lying to our faces.
That's right. You heard it. You heard it yourself. It's not partisan to stand up for democracy by deliberately thwarting it, by burying the Hunter Biden laptop story as Russian disinformation just weeks before a presidential election. No, now that's called standing up for democracy. It's not partisan to label the political opponents of Nancy Pelosi with the same epithets that she labels them with, right? That's actually called now patriotic. We at CNN are all for deplatforming those who we, as the arbiters of truth, we determine to be lying to our faces. There you go. That's how they do it. That's how they reconcile this contradiction between advocacy and objectivity. Truth is now partisan. Truth is left-wing. Truth has been politically weaponized. And that is precisely why Stelter and the mainstream media as a whole have collapsed in terms of public trust. You know, I got to say, in many respects, I'm going to kind of miss old Mr. Potato Head. He was always the gift that kept on giving. He never failed to disappoint, being the quintessential spokesperson for everything that has gone wrong with the legacy media. But given the current insanity, the woke absurdity that passes today for supposedly objective journalism, I don't think we'll have to look long before we find a fitting replacement. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on Sam Harris utterly destroying his own career with a completely deranged rant over President Trump. You're going to love it. So make sure to click on the link and I'll see you over there. God bless.